to the questions. First of
Yep.
all, thank you, Sir Bartacus, for guiding us through the questions that have been sent in via the newsletter and the Discord thread.
No worries.
Let's get started.
Yeah, I categorized them in two separate piles. One file from the newsletter and one from Discord question. And I'll start with some general questions. Got a question from Lava Day. Will there be an option to adjust the number of copies you have directly from your collection? So in your collection overview that there's a plus or minus button or whatever to add cards that you have copies of.
Patrick, do you
Yeah,
want to take
so
this one?
absolutely. So this is something why we want to have a big community and also people who giving us feedback, because this is something in a process where you're building something new, completely new from scratch. And sometimes you forgot some major features like a plus and minus button for your collection. And yeah, that brings us to the point. We not already started with that, but it's a major thing we have to add it. So this is something we will hopefully do in as soon as possible. And we are also happy to get this feedback. And that means, hey, stay tuned. It's not yet ready, but it will come in the near future.
Okay. Shall I continue to
Yeah,
the next
let's go.
one then?
Yeah, for sure. Let's go.
The next one is, can you add a photo identification so you can point your phone at a card and get a card market price or even add it to your collection?
Yeah, and in the early days of TCG-Home and Future Vault as well, is that we talked about a card scanner. And it was something in our first sale, so we got feedback from, hey, we need a card scanner, but there was not so many people who asked for it. But we know that how to manage your collection and how to put in cards to your collection is a very important part of it. And it should be an easy and so an easy way to do that with that. And yeah, so in the end, it is something we say, hey, we already, what I said in the question before, we are happy to get that feedback again. Hey, there could be an option for scanning a card. We wouldn't say, yes, we will do it now. It is more like, hey, we see there is more attention to that to a need of a card scanner, and we will put it on the sketchboard as well. That means, hey, we have to discuss it with our dev team. When will it happen and how? Because the idea of TCG-Home in the end is to make everything as simple as possible. And also, don't forget to prioritize the things that are very important for the app. Like, I will tell you later more things about that, but it is super important for us that every feature we started bring to a point where we can say we are happy with the result of the feature, and then just go on and make an evolution of that to an upcoming feature that is important on another side of the product to see, hey, this is now fitting a big problem for our user community. And that brings me also back to the question itself. Card scanner is a thing people want. It's not priority one, but it is something we wouldn't say no, we don't do it. It is more like on a later point. I think adding cards and decrease your amount of cards is in a bigger priority, but we wouldn't say, hey, never ever a scanner. That is the wrong answer. It is more like when, how, and is there anything we have to do before that is more important?
Yeah. And also to the question itself about like just pointing your phone at a card and then displaying your price on card market right now is a very, I want to say, specific use case that's not as close to what we're doing right now as some other things that we have planned. So it I could definitely see something like that, for example, happening in the future as a premium feature. So once we've finished the beta and all of the essential features for TCG-Home are completed, then we could look at something like this that is more narrow in scope and needs very specific attention from our development team.
Sounds good. And I'll continue to the next one. Would you make it possible to export all your card data, for example, selling purposes to other platforms? That's a question from Swami.
So about sharing your collection or your data from your collection is something we have already in work. It is like, hey, do you want to see my collection? Do you want to see what my cards are? And also, hey, this is the value of my collection. Hey, I have this listed on Card Market or on another partner that we will have in the near future for people from the States. It is something I wouldn't say like what every feature we creating is we starting with a ground-based product on it. So you have something like what I said before with the card scanner. It doesn't make sense now to share it outside of the app. It is more like the idea why you wouldn't share it outside of the app if we are connected to the marketplace, for example. So we have the option to say, hey, you can directly upload your cards to Card Market, or there will be other partners in the future. So for us, it's more important to know what is the platform you want to upload your cards to. And that brings us to the point where we can say, hey, we have to figure out to solve that problem that you don't have to export your cards, then working around it to bring it to another platform and then synchronize it back to TCG-Home. It's more like a direct way that we want you to bring your collection, your cards, and you guys want to sell directly to the platform. And I think that is major and more important, and it's how we work also. We want to ask the right question and not only just to say, hey, yes, we're doing that. It's more like to understand what the community wants and then just go on to it and make the best solution for that.
And also, as you said before, Patrick, one of our major goals is to make handling your cards and your collection as easy as possible. And of course, a seamless direct integration to whatever other platform you might want to use is, for that reason, always preferable to going through several steps of exporting and then importing again and all of that. So since both of these, developing an export feature or developing another direct integration, cost us development resources, we would rather have another direct integration than having an export. Now, that being said, we are currently working on more ways for you to share your collection, share your profile, share parts of what you've achieved on TCG-Home and what you've been working on. And we could definitely see an export being very easy to construct based on that. So if we kind of find out that while we're developing these sharing features, we find out, hey, it's now kind of really easy to integrate an export option here, then we might just throw it out there. It's all just a question of how the development timelines line up, really.
Okay, makes perfect sense indeed. Yeah, these were some general questions. Now one more specifically to Magic, but I think it also applies to Pokemon. Will you add a land checkbox in the filter for MTG? But I think the same applies for energy cards in Pokemon.
So what we said, or what I already said about the development process is to thinking about, is that a feature that is now important on our roadmap? It is something we say, hey, is this possible? In the past, the past project I worked, there was only there was every time the idea of saying, hey, we're starting with the ground up product. We have a raw product. And then this is a very, very detailed request. I wouldn't say no. It is more like, hey, we bring it also, what I said before, with the other features like the card scanner or something else, to say, if this makes your life easier with your hobby, with your TCG, and is so important, and so we have to discuss this. But in the end, it is something we can also thinking about, hey, if it's not so many time to implement it, why not? Bring it on a sketchboard, give us feedback on Discord, super important for us, that we know what is our features like this one, hey, we want that to have, and then we can discuss internally, hey, could we bring this into the roadmap? Does it take only 1 day? Does it take 10 days? How many work we have with us? And also, secondly, is there only just 1 or 2 persons out there? Just share, everybody of you who has just already joined the TCG-Home or will join and see maybe this stream in the future as a video. Let us know in the Discord what is something you want, and that we can also thinking about, hey, this is a major thing for our community. There's a lot of other products in the startup companies that they never thought this is something that our community wants in a major thing, and it's only about the community feedback that they started to working on that. And this is something we bring also to TCG-Home. We want to understand what is important for you and how important it is. And if there's for example, a couple thousand people and said, hey, this mana checkbox, this is something I need now, then we will prioritize it higher. Because in the end, if 2 or 3 people are asking for that and we have more requests for a card scanner, like a couple hundred, then it's sure we have to prioritize not only about, hey, there's more people, it's more like how many work we have at it, how do we have it, and secondly, is there any fit for the user?
Yeah. So like, we keep saying that we build our platform community based, and we like to take all of you on board when developing this. And when we say that, we mean it. If you give us feedback and you really want a specific feature, and we learn from the community feedback that it is something that lots of people want and that lots of people need for this to work for them, then it's something we will prioritize accordingly. Of course, there's limits to that. If y'all ask us for a feature that suddenly makes people on Card Market pay 200 times the regular price, and all of you want it, that's pretty cool, but we can still do that. Like, we have to see how the development process and the technical implementation line up. But if you tell us you need something, we will do it. And specifically to this question, do we add a specific filter checkbox for lands and Magic, for energy cards and Pokemon? Generally, it's only a matter of time until something like this happens, because filter options, sorting options, generally making it more detailed and more granular how you can display and manage your collection is something that we always have at the back of our mind as we're going through the app, as we're using it ourselves. And the only question is, when do we have time to make all of the things that we want to make and that you would like to see us make? This is definitely one of those where it's just a matter of when do we have time to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next 2 questions are about Pokemon, and I'm going to combine them because they're fairly similar. When will you include more languages for Pokemon cards, and will it be possible to see a list of Pokemon cards in Japanese?
So to answer this question, firstly, I'm not 100% sure if everybody knows that, but the Pokemon data bank is, I think, at the moment in TCGs, the most complex one. The biggest problem is, for example, if you look into Magic cards, there's Scryfall as a ground database where you have all card informations worldwide on one platform, and we're working also with Scryfall. So we're getting data from that page, and we just, so as nearly every other Magic platform worldwide has, and we adding also things we missed. For example, if you have cards like they're only released in Europe and the databank Scryfall doesn't have it, we will also work on it that we have it into our app. So this is for Magic. And the second thing about to know for Magic that is important to answer this question is, worldwide, if a Magic set came out, it is exactly the same card in another language, but it's exactly the same card releasing nearly on the same date. The point on Pokemon is that you have separate releases in Japan or in Asia with separate editions, and some promo cards that only exist. Sure, you have that also in Magic, but it's only a couple. It's not so many cards. But in Pokemon, there are fully editions that are separated, released in Japan. Then you have special products, not only 1 or 2 cards. It's a couple hundred a year. And the point is, we say, hey, we're working on that. We know that it's super important, and there's no data bank outside who has fully and correctly managed to go to the point to say, okay, I'm typing in my card, here is it, and I have it now in my collection. We working on this. This is, for example, what I told before. This is important. We know that a full data bank to see all your cards you have, especially if you're traveling and you're buying some stuff elsewhere, or you're buying in Europe and said, hey, I'm a big fan of the Japanese original art cards or special promos from the past or anything else. We want to bring that to TCG-Home, and this is something we prioritize higher than a card scanner, for example. This means, hey, for sure, we will have that data bank ready as soon as possible. But secondly, what I can say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I also have the questions. You said also, hey, when will it possible to list that cards in different languages, right?
Yeah, when will it be possible to see a list of Pokemon cards in Japanese?
Yeah, so this is for the hopefully I don't mix up the questions as well. Yeah, no. So this is what I said. Hey, we work on it, and also adding cards in other languages will be, for example, possible end of the week. So we're working at the moment that you can put in a card, for example, if you have a German card. We know that we already have Pokemon cards only available in English, but at the end of the week we will launch the possibility to say, I have this card in English, in Japanese, I have it in German or in Portuguese or whatever.
Yeah, and as you said, the database is really the major pain point here, and we're already working on that. We have several data sources that we are trying to combine to make a Pokemon database that is as complete as possible. So that is definitely basically the next big thing that we want to do for Pokemon is get the database up and running for different languages, different editions. We know there are cards that are missing, and getting those in there is our main priority for Pokemon right now. And that is also why you might see other features that people are asking for being delayed, because we know really how important it is to just have access to all the cards in the platform. And that is why we are focused so much on this. And I know it sounds maybe easier than it actually is. Why don't you just add all the cards? But as Patrick just laid out, the Pokemon landscape and history is very complex in terms of releases and in terms of which cards are available in which languages, from where, what releases, and so on. And getting all of that data reflected to the detail that we want and to the standards that we have set for ourselves at TCG-Home is really what makes this take so long. But I think it is also worth the time and the effort that we put in.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, the next one is a bit of a follow-up to this question. It might be hard to answer then, but it is, can I upload Pokemon cards somewhere in case I can't find them in your database? A question from Kyrock.
Yeah, this is a great question, and at the moment I can say I can only say, hey, if you don't find a card in our database, and this is only a workaround, but for everybody out there, we have a tag feature. And what you can do if you don't find a card, you can look in for a similar card. So, for example, there's what I said before. There's editions from Japanese sets, and people want to add a card especially for that. And there's a European version of that, but from another set, because the European and the Asian sets are different. But a couple of the cards, for example, in Evolutions, there was in the Japanese version was, I think, 12 cards more or 8 cards more. And what we can work around at the moment is, if you just, we are in a beta, never forget that. I think that is a very important thing, that we are not a fully released product. So this is why we also need feedback. We're also working on the product. What you can do is looking for a similar card and give it a hash, give it a tag, for example, placeholder, or hey, future update or something. And secondly, I think this is more important, if you're missing a card in our database, just come to our Discord and give us feedback. You have you can open a ticket and say, hey, I'm missing this 5 cards. I'm missing this 2 cards. And we can add them manually. But what I said before, our team has to prioritize things. But if you have, for example, if you just missing 1 card, yeah, you can post that. But if you collect them together between, for example, while you're uploading your collection and see, hey, I'm missing 5 or 6 cards over the whole phase of putting them into my TCG-Home account, then report us these 5 cards, and then we will look forward to add them as soon as possible.
Yeah, and as we just said, we are actively working on the Pokemon database. So there is an update coming, and we hope that after that update is released, you will be able to add the vast majority of all Pokemon cards. So if you find any cards that are missing right now, we probably know. We are aware that there are cards that are missing. So don't bother listing all of them right now. Just give us a bit more time and some more of your patience until we can get that database update released for Pokemon. And then, once we got our database up to speed and you still find cards that are missing, then we will definitely set up a way for you to report them, probably via the Discord server. So we know that even after the update, there might still be some cards that fell through the cracks, and then we can get to adding them. But there will definitely be a way to do that. But don't bother about it until we have the complete database ready.
Okay. Yeah, those were the questions about Pokemon. Now there are 3 questions about other trading card games. So I'll combine them again. Wheelie on Discord and first from the newsletter asked, when will you add One Piece to the TCG-Home? Duke Sir Lightchow Rikiosto asked, when will Yu-Gi-Oh! Will be added? And Hanran asked if Digimon trading card game will ever be added.
So in the end, TCG-Home has a vision and the roadmap to bring all TCGs that are, I wouldn't say it's not only the important TCGs, but all major TCGs. And this include also smaller card games. For example, I wouldn't say that Digimon is a small card game, but beside of Magic the Gathering, is a lot smaller. The idea is firstly to complete the 4 major TCGs, and I would say this is just missing at the moment Yu-Gi-Oh! And One Piece and Yu-Gi-Oh! Are the next ones. But we don't have a major date for that. It's more like, hey, finishing first what we have open, like Pokemon database, just a few more small things on Magic. Lorcana, just we maybe there are some new challenges for upcoming sets. We don't know yet, but in the end, it's not that we say no, we just we're doing it tomorrow. It's more like, hey, we want to be realistic and say, hey, we have the option to bring them hopefully sooner than later. But I would say Yu-Gi-Oh! And One Piece this year, follow up by the other ones, like Digimon, like Force of Will, like Flesh and Blood is also very important. Yeah, for a lot of people. And maybe we can find a way to bring a couple of them together to TCG-Home. But as I said before, working on the major priorities of fixing and making your experience with TCG-Home more comfortable with the already existing TCGs on TCG-Home is more important than adding all TCGs and all are bugged. So that's not something like a good experience. And we won't say, hey, yeah, for sure, we bring every TCG and we make it 100% finished and then starting with the next one. It's also not that kind. It's more like, hey, we finished now 80 to 90% of the whole process for TCG. As long we are in beta, this is important. As long we are in beta, it's like, hey, now we are at a point we are happy, not 100% happy, but we are happy, for example, with Pokemon. And then we can say, okay, let's go into with Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think Yu-Gi-Oh! is very often requested. also outside from TCG-Home, where people ask me, or just a couple of people from our team, hey, when will Yu-Gi-Oh be available? Also to understand that it's from outside, you see that a lot of TCGs are very similar, but the structure of Magic to Pokemon to Lorcana to Yu-Gi-Oh is super different, and Yu-Gi-Oh is a special kind of it as well, because you have a complete other way of infrastructure about the data. For example, in Magic the Gathering, you have a card in regular foil or in a regular version. In Pokemon, there's only the reversed foil versions that happens with the same similarity, but there's a cards that only existing in foil or only not in foil. For example, in the base set, you have a you have a foil version, and then as another collector number, the non-foil version in the same set. And with Yu-Gi-Oh, it's more complicated, but because you have a couple of different foilings, there's a lot more of foilings in Yu-Gi-Oh, and a couple of them foilings are specific to specific sets, but the same card can exist in 2 or 3 versions. Like in the past, there was Ultimate Rare, there was Star Foil or whatever, but the same card existing also then in Rare or in Ultra Rare or whatever. And that is the big challenge in Yu-Gi-Oh, to bring the correct data to TCG-Home as well. And yeah, I think this is something we already have in mind for releasing Yu-Gi-Oh, to bring, because what I said before, if you bring directly a new TCG to TCG-Home and a lot of people are not happy with it, we want that the people stay. And I think that is the most important thing, to say, hey, we're not 100% with our experience finished, but it is so ready that you can use the app and you have a positive feedback, or you have a positive feeling with TCG-Home, and I think that is the most important thing.
Yeah, and one thing generally for everyone who's wondering, when is my favorite TCG coming to TCG-Home? As Patrick already said, we want to have all of the major relevant TCGs out there on the platform eventually. For now, we basically, the way we work is we finish 1 or 2 of them, and then once we're happy, we ask ourselves, okay, what's the next most important games? We started with Magic as the biggest TCG out there. Then we moved on to Lorcana as the new kid on the block, basically, and also Pokemon as the other biggest TCG. And where we are at now, we got all of those on the platform, and the next ones planned are both Yu-Gi-Oh and One Piece. And once we have those on board, we're gonna ask the same question again: which is the next most relevant? How can we make the biggest number of people happy? And yeah, but before we can get to Yu-Gi-Oh and One Piece, there are a few things on our roadmap that we want to finish, which is basically the reason why we can't give you a set date. This is when they will release yet. And Patrick already talked about some of the improvements for the games we already have, but we're also trying to bring you some general improvements of the platform. For example, getting international prices, which is one of the major topics that we're working on right now, and also giving you a native mobile app for TCG-Home to just make the card management on the go more comfortable, because we know that the mobile browser experience is workable but not ideal right now, and that is definitely something we also want to address this year, and probably want to have an answer for before we onboard even more games.
Okay, then there is one more last question from the newsletter survey, and I think you see it coming, Dan, and that is, how much is the fish?
Yeah, there has to be every time a joke question, but I started researching in a 10-hour research on Google, and I figured out there are many answers to that, but in the end, 380 is the correct answer.
Yeah, for those
Great.
of you not familiar with that joke, it's a reference to a German techno song from let's just say a while ago, from the band Scooter, and apparently the answer is 380.
Yeah, and also Scooter is like Magic the Gathering. They are starting in the early 90s and still there.
Fair.
Impressive.
One last thing I want to add to the question before, and I think this is also important because I saw that a few people ask, hey, why so early Lorcana? If there's a new TCG outcome just coming to the market, there's not so many data to work for it to bring it to a platform. So, for example, we know that Digimon and One Piece is also not so old, but it is so old that we have to make more work than for Lorcana, for example, to add it. So that means also it could be that a new TCG came out. People also ask about new Star Wars TCG will come out. We have to prioritize the work to the need. And if you see, hey, there's an easy way to add a new TCG to the platform with only a few hours of work, that gives a big value to a new user group or to existing user group as well. And it could be that another TCG comes before your requested TCG. So this is, I think, something important to understand and to know. And let's see what happens also in the future about more things.
Yeah, so basically the same thing that we explained about Pokemon earlier with getting the database up to speed and making sure all the cards in all the right versions are there is also what we had to do to get Lorcana on there. The only difference is that this work is a lot easier when you start by doing just like 200 cards instead of like 20 years worth of history of a game.
Do you have any idea how many different Pokemon cards are currently listed in your database?
I don't actually know off the top of my head. Let's see if I can find that out.
Shall I
Not
already
all,
continue to the
but
next
that's
question
something we're
already,
working
then?
on. Sorry again?
Shall I continue to the next question in the meantime then?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
So the last question was from Discord. It's a bit of a longer one. Will you add a feature to sync the collection and what you have on Card Market for sale? Like if someone has a lot of cards on sale on Card Market, that there will be a sync button to import all those cards to TCG-Home, but also vice versa, that you can have a separate list on TCG-Home and with a single button list all those cards on different platforms.
The cool thing is there will be also very soon a feature where you can not sync your collection. It is important to understand. It's more like import your collection from Card Market to TCG-Home. And this is not for the sold ones that are in baskets. It's more for the active cards in your account. That is important to understand. In the future, let's see what happens and also how we prioritize it, what we said a couple of times today. But in the future, we have to figure out what is the best way to work around that or directly make it as that feature possible that you directly can sync your collection. To understand that is if you're syncing a collection and, for example, you have a couple of cards on Card Market and they got sold and then just canceled or just only go into the basket and room from the basket, you have to make requests every couple of seconds to have 100% correct database synced between Card Market and TCG-Home. This is also something we have to figure out how we make it the easiest way and the most efficient way. But short term, I can say that there will be a feature in the near future, and also check out our partner Card Market, our partner Card Market, and TCG-Home and cooperation for an event we will have very soon. I don't want a spoiler, but it's a cool thing to get maybe access to something very unique from Magic the Gathering. And it has something to do with exactly this feature. So Yeah, I want to end this last question with a small mystery and a little bit of hype level.
Yeah, I'm definitely very excited for what we have planned with our friends from Card Market. And yeah, so we have seen over the last few weeks and months that the basically what this question is describing, syncing your Card Market inventory with your TCG-Home collection, is what a lot of people expected our current Card Market integration to do. And we had to do a lot of like work to explain that this is not actually what it does right now. And we're also working on explaining that better in the app with more help sections and more descriptions of how does something work and what is it meant for. But yeah, as Patrick already said, this is a feature that is definitely coming, and we have our friends at Card Market who help us make that a reality, because that is one of the things that doesn't only cost us development capability, but also them to provide us all of this data and allow more capabilities for our API connection. Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have any more
do we have
questions
everything?
from the?
Yeah, for sure.
No more questions from the newsletter or the Discord.
All right, then let's hand it over to Tigier for the questions from the live chat that have been collected so far. What do you have?
So there's currently only 2 questions as of yet,
Okay.
both from Carsten Winter.
Mhm.
And he's asking, first of all, is there a site for known missing cards? Any place where it's collected?
We don't have a specific site for that right now, because basically the site for that is our live app. If you can't find a card in the live app, it's missing from there. So yeah, and also we would not want to invest more of our development capabilities in creating a display specifically for missing cards. We would rather use that capacity to work on adding those missing cards instead of delaying it just for a better visual of what we don't have.
And another question, same direction. Is there a site for currently considered features? Maybe to vote for a specific feature or just to view them? Or is the Discord feedback channel the right place for that?
The Discord feedback forum is definitely one of the places where you can do that. Basically, if you have any idea for a feature or any change you want, check out the feedback forum. It's very, very comfortable to search. You can just find any post that people have already made before and just upvote them instead of just writing it down on your own, because if we have to work through a lot of different posts that are about the same topic, it takes us more time than just looking at one topic and seeing, hey, a lot of people have uploaded this. Maybe we should invest more time in fixing that. And the other place where you can go to see what we've planned, basically less of a collection of suggested features from the community and more of a specific plan for what we want to do, is the roadmap on our website, just tcg-home.com/roadmap, where you can see what we've already done before and also what our next steps are. So right now you can see that the next steps we have planned are US card prices from Card Kingdom and TCG Player, showcasing your collection by sharing it with friends, and dedicated attention to decks and deck lists, as well as a native mobile app. And we make sure to update these places every once in a while, just to make sure that stuff we've already covered is included there. And also, if things change in our plans, as we said before, sometimes we figure out that, hey, this is actually way easier and way quicker to introduce, and we can also do something else in addition, we will add that there.
And lastly, to add to that is in the past, we made a couple of times a user survey by newsletter, for example, or we send out in another ways to say, hey, we have a small survey. That means following or just subscribe for the newsletter is also one way when there will be in the future some surveys we will make for asking, hey, what is about this next steps? But the main point, what Dan already said, is just come to Discord, and the most interaction is there. And our main part of the community is also there. And I think, yeah, but subscribing to the newsletter is something that is not only just to say, hey, cool, there's another newsletter in my inbox. It's more like, hey, we share very detailed. It's not only there's a 2-line email that you get. We share with you directly a few visuals and a couple of things in the newsletter where you can see what's new on TCG-Home.
And also, the newsletter is very useful if you just don't have time to keep up with everything that's going on Discord, because we know that sometimes there are a lot of conversations there. It's hard to keep track of what's happening. I know I've tagged everyone a few times over the last few weeks, and sometimes you just don't have time to read everything there. And the newsletter just gives you a concise summary of everything that's happened in the past week or that's going to happen in the next few days. So if you think that you just don't have time right now to check the Discord, getting a read of the newsletter is already covering all the most important bases there. Oh, and also one more thing. We have a few dedicated groups for testing, like our alpha testers and the Pokemon experts group. And these groups not only get early access or teasers to some features, they also get some specific targeted feedback surveys to answer that help us shape the future of the platform and decide what is it that we want to do next. So if you are not on one of those groups yet, definitely check out Discord to find out how to join. And yeah, being in one of those groups comes with some of these nice perks where you get to see things in advance and also make your voice heard directly to our teams. All right. Do we have any other questions in chat?
We don't. So if there's anything else any viewer still want to ask, now would be the point. Now's the time.
Or while we're waiting for people to type up their questions, the two of you who are here in chat with us, do you have any questions that you want to use this opportunity for to ask us?
Well, you've listed the amount of Pokemon cards in chat and the amount for Lorcana, but I'm also curious, of course, about how many Magic cards are in your database.
Oh, that's a good question. I know it's more than for the other games. So for the people who are not who don't have the live chat, for example, if you're watching this on YouTube, our development team dove into the database and got us the numbers. We have 17,185 Pokemon cards before the update that we mentioned previously. So that is status quo Pokemon, 17,000 and a bit of cards. And for Lorcana, first edition has 218 unique cards, plus 10 promos, so 228 if you include all of that. Let's see if we can get some numbers for Magic. I'm pretty sure it has to be like over 25,000. Probably a lot more.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that the numbers for Pokemon. I was like, Magic has to be a lot higher.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I hope we can get Pokemon a lot higher too very soon.
Yeah. And maybe in the meantime, while the numbers are getting fetched, there's another question from Karsten in the chat. If you guys are hiring.
We're every time open for yeah, we just I wouldn't say directly proactive we are hiring at the moment, but if there's someone who said, hey, I want to try to get into TCG-Home, yeah, send us your informations and we will come back to you if it makes sense for us to if there's any fit in any of the positions at TCG-Home.
Yeah, definitely. Like as we already said, we have a limited team capability to work with. We also have somewhat limited resources, as any company does. But if you can make us a good offer and you bring something to the team that we really need, I think the company is always open to looking at a new hire for sure.
And on the other side, if you are very or if you're super addicted to TCG-Home and you said, hey, I don't need a job for that, or just I want to give my feedback more like our community champions. There's every time possibility to give us feedback on the other side and working on that kind of to bring the app to a better status. And I think this is not like directly work. It's more like, hey, what you two guys are doing is like, hey, we're collecting from the community, and also from our side things to share it with the team of TCG-Home to make the app in a better state.
We've got a more serious question from Kalius. I
Mhm.
hope it's not wrong. How do you
Mhm.
manage information security? You have address and the list of cards with value on hand.
Mhm.
A burglar would have a nice day with those informations.
So firstly, I would say there is no address that we shown into the app from what is your collection worth. And secondly, it's just it's not that we store your cards. It's more like, hey, you put in your cards that you have at home, or maybe you want it. Just you can also put in a card and said, hey, this is on my wants list. So there's not any specific physical cards about. We're going to every high-end standards of security to that nobody grabs your data, but there's nothing open shown away from. So in the end, in the sharing feature, there will be some things you can share, a couple of things from your side, but mainly it's anonymous. And I think it's also important to understand that security is not something like we said, yeah, we prioritize it later. It's just from the beginning on. It's one of the first things we do to make everything as I think a good groundwork for a company is firstly to secure data and information from the users, and then go on with the product. And this is how we work.
Yeah, and also a note on like how we handle information security internally. There is only a very limited number of people who have access to any given set of information. For example, I cannot access your address. I don't have access to that level of information. Like I can, for example, if I know your username, I can look for a specific card and I can find out if you have that card in your collection. But I can't find out who is this, where do they live, and what are all the cards in their collection. And also, I don't know if you just put in 25 Black Lotus into your Magic collection that you don't actually have. That is something you could do, and would definitely make my life as a burglar with that information a lot harder. But yeah, as Patrick said, we don't have super reliable information about what physical cards are actually there or where they are, and it is very limited to who has access to that information. So and also the address field in your user data is no longer required. That was back in the day before we launched TCG-Home, but it is no longer something that you have there as a default. So yeah, it's getting it's getting a lot easier for you, I hope. And
So, and mainly to round this up is also that only the access from the part of the company who needs access to some data can look through it, and it's shown to them. There's also, from my side as one of the founders, there's a couple of things I don't see because it doesn't make sense. We also look in our directly in the company who has access to what makes the most sense and if it's needed. And there's also data that is not shown, it's only just on a security level, for example, from our CTO side or something like that. So there's never ever a reason why we should collect data in the background. And for example, there's a lot of things we have in the past heard from other companies or other situations in the internet. But mainly it's like we collecting as low data as possible. And secondly, we don't need them, so that there's no need to say, hey, we need your phone number directly, we need your private address, your address from what is the blood identity from your dog or something like that. It's just like more to understand, hey, there's a few data we need because about just for example, if I'm subscribing for a newsletter, they get my email address, so this is normal. But it is something like that we shared now with a couple of other companies. It's for us, hey, we're just a startup, we are interacting with our community and we need a connecting point to our community. But in the end, it's not like, hey, we're collecting as much data from everyone to make it say later or something like that. It's more like, hey, this is needed for the next process. So for example, if we make a raffle and you win something, we need to address it, we can ship it to you. So this is something for sure. Then we collected the data for that. But it's not like, hey, we need from beginning on to sign up and give us everything from your side that we don't need, only for collecting it.
Yeah, and for example, if you submit your address voluntarily, then we might use that to send you some cool merch, like this TCG-Home hoodie that I'm wearing. I don't know if you can see that. But we might send you some cool stuff if we look at your data and we find out that, hey, this person is actually using TCG-Home a lot. And the other thing is, if you're really concerned about this, the data topic, we have a privacy note about how we use all of your data that you can find on our website. So if you're worried about that, check out the note there. It has all the details. All right.
Is there any more questions?
I would have just two more. One of my
Okay.
own and one that I've heard a lot in the past, but that hasn't come up in this in the feedback.
Sure. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
for sure. Let's go.
Will you add options for altered signed cards, etc.?
So
I hope we do.
I think yeah. So Dan is a very big collector of some signed cards, and I think alterations and signatures are something that makes your card unique. We know that, and it is a big part of collecting as well. For example, from my side, if I'm going to an event, I'm going to one or two of the artists and making, especially with the date and the place from the event, on an artist proof from that artist as one of the memories for myself. And I'm also someone who wants to have that in their in my TCG-Home collection. But it is what we said before, bringing 80%, for example, now to Magic the Gathering and say, hey, let's release the next TCG. But this is the part of bringing MTG to 100%. And it is important for us that in the end, everything will be available, that if there is a small group of people who said, hey, we want that, with the release in the end after the beta doesn't said, hey, it is 100% fully. So every product in the world has an evolution, and we would say, hey, this is not included yet, but the full release product is there, and there's a few smaller things like give it a possibility, for example, to make a picture of my altered card and put it into my account. This is something we also have in mind. And yeah, there's definitely a plan to bring that to the collection, because there's a lot of collectors out there like miscuts, misprints, alteration, signatures, artist proofs also, and
I
special
definitely have a
promo
few.
versions.
I definitely have a few cards in my collection with the signed by artist tag or with the artist proof tag, just so I can easily filter and find them and add those features once we have them available. They're just not like main priorities, but we will get there eventually.
What I did at the moment is that I have a tag on my card that says this is an artist proof. I put in tag artist proof, or I said, hey, this one is signed. I made a tag for that. So I think that is at the moment the best way to work around that. There's not a specific button at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the second question?
Yeah, it was already answered in this, so it's not really. It was a follow up, but that's already done.
All right, perfect.
There's
Okay.
no more questions on the chat.
Okay, then wow, we've already been at this for an hour. So unfortunately, we're I had a blast. I would love to do that for the rest of the evening, but unfortunately, we are out of time for now. If you've just tuned in, there will be a recording of this stream on our YouTube channel in a few days. Thank you all for joining us. I had a lot of fun. It was some really interesting, cool questions. Oh, one more thing. We got a final number that I haven't said yet for the YouTube people. So currently there are 450,052 Magic cards in our database, including all the languages. So yeah, that's quite a lot. But yeah, thanks everyone so much for joining us. Thank you, Patrick. And thanks, of course, to our lovely community champions for making this stream work and guiding us through the questions and keeping a look at chat. Thank you so much. All of this community work wouldn't be possible without you. And yeah, we will definitely do something like this again in the future, I hope. So
And then one more person you forgot.
yes.
We have to say thank you to Kai in the background, because he's working hard to bring the stream to reality. So on the technical side, thank you, Kai, as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to our producer, Kai. You have seen him in the shorts on our YouTube channel. You have seen him in some of our videos. And I think you are going to see more of him very soon. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And that's everything from us for tonight. See you.
Thank you.
Thank